Just imagine if I, a white Englishman, lived in China for most of my life, and then took a break to England, and in England I lived in a white town with a white community, and then put a video on social media that said, "I feel at home with my tribe and my people." What sort of response would a video like that get from the mainstream in the UK today? I would, of course, be called a racist. Why? Because apparently I'm not including the other groups who've come here in the English identity. I will be told that this is highly politically incorrect and insensitive in modern Britain, and the vast majority of people don't think like that anymore. And that may well have been true. However, I think more and more people are waking up and realising it's one rule for the English and one rule for other people. Case in point is the sort of woman who'd shout at me on national TV for saying anything about being part of an English tribe. However, she's been visiting her motherland of India recently. I'm speaking of pop politics commentator Narinder Kaur. Some people mistake her for a Muslim, but her surname's Kaur, so she's definitely Sikh. It's like Singh for a woman. Anyway, given Britain's so horrible for us, she's been scouting India to see if it's somewhere she wants to live, and these are her findings.
So I am here in India, and I asked the question, is it possible for children of immigrants to be able to come back to the homeland, the fatherland?
Homeland? Fatherland? I thought you were just as British as King Alfred.
Because we always feel like we live in this no man's land, that we don't really quite belong in Britain, we don't quite belong here. But what I have felt more than anything is that I've found my tribe, my people. These are my people. I feel at home.
I thought she was against the supposed fascist arguments of quote-unquote blood and soil. But again, blood and soil seems to be fine as long as it's for leftists who are from quote-unquote minority communities.
It's a totally different world in India, but I don't feel like an imposter. And, you know, it's funny because on the plane over I had to fill in this form, and I was a foreigner. It said foreigner coming to India. But I'm the foreigner in Britain. I feel a foreigner in Britain.
That might be because you refer to India as your fatherland and say you're with your tribe when you go there.
You know, and I feel resentment. I feel resentment that my parents were forced to come over to Britain to make a life because India was stripped bare by the British.
Firstly, we know you're driven by resentment, Narinder. Secondly, it's not exactly like India was this land of milk and honey before the British showed up. In fact, it's in a better state now than it was before we found it.
And here I am now in England, where a country that doesn't really like brown or black people, and you don't. And I've spoken to foreign students here, like the ones I spoke to from Congo. I said, have you actually experienced racism? No, nothing. I've seen every nationality here being welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, the British are all evil and racist. Original take there, Narinder. However, let's see what people outside of your echo chamber say about how the Indians treat people from different groups. Here's the Middle Eastern Al Jazeera. They're left-leaning just like you, Narinder. Oh, but look, apparently being in Africa means that you're seen as a demon. Here's another piece with Africans saying they're frightened of being attacked by mobs in India. And here's a young man from Africa who went to study there saying he's tired of being called a cannibal, a drug peddler and a pimp because of the colour of his skin. But I'm sure that's all fake news, and the real spirit of India is encapsulated in their national hero Gandhi, who is completely au fait with modern sensibilities regarding equality, except he called Africans savages and raw, and said they live lives of indolence. But hey, I should stop being such a toxic white male, right, and look into how multicultural and welcoming India is now. According to Google, there are 300,000 Africans in India. Now, when you correlate that figure with the 1.45 billion Indians in the country, it turns out that there are 0.02% of Africans in India. Further, I wonder if Narinder would count these Africans as Indian. After all, if they come to Britain, we would be evil and racist if we didn't see them as British. But we already know she doesn't see them as Indians because she's already stated the Africans are being welcomed by the Indians. Although, obviously, the Africans don't seem to agree with that themselves.
And they said, we don't want to come to Britain. We've heard they beat up our people. We've heard they don't like us. And actually, our country is doing great. So that's what I've experienced.
Now, I don't want to call you a liar, Narinder, but I don't know where English people have been beating up your people. Your emphasis, remember, not mine. Second to that, a simple search on Google tells us that last year, India was the largest source of immigrants to the UK, with 250,000 people arriving in the country. Now, if I was to be cynical, I would say that you're not actually representing what you've witnessed in India for real, nor do you intend to move there. You've only made this video for narcissistic liberals like yourself in the Western world. But unfortunately for Narinder and her fellow grifters, more and more people in the Western world are waking up to this scam, this whole identity for me but not for thee thing. And let's remember, as things increasingly get more and more chaotic, it's not because we wanted it this way. It's been ideologues like this who forced this issue and turned the modern world into a total chaotic mess. Seems obvious that identity politics was going to return when the cultural and political conversation is driven by actors such as Narinder. These are just my thoughts, however, do let me know what you think down below. Do consider subscribing to the channel.